Welcome, you're on The Fringe Show. I'm your host, Tatiana Zalan, and I go live on Fridays at 2 p.m. Dubai time. The Fringe is about your future or our future, technology, art, and society. I help you to navigate the rapidly changing world so that you too can take advantage of the opportunities in this new digital world, uncertain world as well. It's episode 71, and I decided to continue the theme that I started in the last show, which is Secrets of the Digital World, of the digital art world, to be more precise. And in the last show, I talked about 2 commandments for digital artists. Now, I'm going to talk about how technology is influencing the art market and how the traditional art world is trying to work with digits and technology as art, and what this means to you as an artist. So the implications of all of that. So I will briefly mention some of the technological advancements that we've seen in the art space. I will mention platformification, disintermediation, professionalization of the art space, and the fluid boundaries that we see between what constitutes art, what's not, and what's not art. And that's been a perennial question in the art world. Then I will briefly maybe mention the metaverse and some of the new technologies such as AI and VR and so on. So, disclaimer, the usual disclaimer, the views are my own. They do not represent the views of the organizations and employers I'm associated with. The Fringe Show is for educational purposes only. And it will be impossible to talk about art and digital art and not show you some of these art pieces. So this is what I'm going to do. And we are starting with that particular piece. I would like to say that experimentation with this idea of blending visual arts and technology is very, very old. It probably started somewhere in the 60s, and the first attempt to bring technology and art in the creative process happened somewhere in 1968 or 67. What you see here is a group of New York artists. Back then, this group, including John Cage and Robert Rauschenberg and Robert Whitman and Yvonne Reiner, worked with engineers and scientists from the world-renowned Bell Laboratories, of all places, to create all these groundbreaking performances that incorporated new technology. Billy Kluver and Fred Wald were engineers that were participating in this group. And what you see here are that these first installations and performances which promote the use of technology in creating art as a cornerstone for further digital art development. During this group existence, performances were held that incorporated such pioneering technology as video projection and wireless sound transmission, and also the Doppler sonar. Now, next picture that would be great to show is that one. And you probably can guess who I'm referring to, and that's Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol was, of course, one of the most influential artists who used modern technologies such as video, film, and screen printing to make his art more visible, accessible, more scalable. But it's a little known fact that Warhol was actually one of the first pioneers of digital art. He created his initial digital drawings on an Amiga computer. He was a brand ambassador for the computer company Commodore International, that was the manufacturer of these Amiga computers. All of this happened in 1985, but Andy Warhol's digital art pieces were lost and forgotten until 2014. And then they were rediscovered and recovered by artists Corey Arcangel, who is a New York-based multimedia artist. She is an Andy Warhol fan as well, and the Warhol Museum exhibited some of these pieces, and this is the next kind of slide that shows you how Andy Warhol and Debbie Harry are using this Amiga computer developing the images. Okay, so what happened next is probably this gentleman that we need to talk about, and that's Harold Cohen. What's interesting about Harold Cohen is that he was also one of the pioneers of digital art. I actually had a video show that mentioned him in a lot of detail on art and AI a year ago. He's a pioneer in computer art, algorithmic art, and in generative art. He was a very talented artist. He was, because he's no longer with us. He was also an impressive engineer and an important bridge between these two worlds. And his work really redefined the first generation of computer-generated art. He created the system, which is called Aaron, and that's one of the longest-running and continually maintained AI systems in history. Aaron is a robotic system. It's developed over many years. It can pick up literally a paintbrush with its robotic arm and paint on canvas and on its own. Cohen and Aaron liked organic forms. I'll show you another of his creations. So that they liked all these forms, nature and gardens and flowers and human bodies. I hear that he was influenced a lot by Japanese art. And Cohen's work on Aaron began in 1968, so approximately at the same time the experimentation generally began. It started at the University of California, and he initially wrote this Aaron on robot and programming with a C programming language, but then he converted to Lisp, saying that, well, C is too inflexible, too kind of inexpressive to deal with something as conceptually complex as color. What else do we have as new developments then in the 90s? Well, the internet started, of course, the technology revolution, and people soon recognized the vast possibilities of this virtual global network and the digital art scene that started to bloom and boom. The internet helped numerous artists to make their artwork more visible. It increased accessibility to worldwide audiences. Social networks appeared, particularly the one like Facebook and then Instagram and YouTube, very important for promoting one's work. Advanced technology also enabled the artists to transform and manipulate their artworks, and that became a significant art medium. And then, of course, GANs came. GANs stands for Generative Adversarial Network. Essentially, it's a system that pits algorithms against each other in order to improve the quality of the results. And one algorithm generates data and the other competes with it, and it discriminates between the real data and the false data being produced. So this is why this whole system becomes, as we know, adversarial. Let me show you another famous painting. It's a very famous painting by, well, it's hard to say by whom. It's certainly by GAN. And GANs, they sometimes say that it's kind of similar to imagination. That painting generated by artificial intelligence sold at an auction for nearly $500,000. The painting is called Edmond de Bellamy from La Famille de Bellamy. It sold at Christie's for over $400,000, and that included fees. And when they started the auction at Christie's, they only said, well, maybe it'll attract $7,000 to $10,000 for that piece in dollars. But the buyer bid by phone, remained anonymous, and was quite willing to pay over $400,000. And that's probably because it was one of the first AI generated pieces or using this adversarial networks. The portrait itself was created by Obvious, a French art collective, and you see a representative of this collective standing there near Edmond de Bellamy. It marketed by Christie's as the first ever AI-made painting sold at an auction. The way they created art was to feed thousands of portraits into an algorithm, teaching the machine portraiture techniques of the 18th century, which is quite it's obvious that's 18th century. And then the result was a series of 11 images that the famille de Bellamy. That's how it all came about. Now, another interesting development, and that's one of the more recent developments here that we see, is by an artist and scientist, computer scientist, Refik Anadol. Refik Anadol excels in site-specific public art. What you see here is an example of public art. It's composed with parametric data, a sculpture, and live audiovisual performances that really immerse the viewers. He loves this combination of AI and music. So it kind of resides between art and technology, expanding the possibilities of architecture. It brings a new outlook beyond space and time, connects past and present and future. His work explores typically the space among digital and physical entities, creating this hybrid relationship between architecture and media arts using machine intelligence. What you see here is a mapping version of the piece of the facade of Casa Batlló, that's by Gaudi, that was done in front of almost 50,000 attendees, happened in 2022. This digital artwork was on public view at Rockefeller Plaza at the heart of Manhattan. But the visitors at the original Casa Batlló in Barcelona could also experience it on the 5th floor of this iconic building. What is also interesting about this artwork, and this is how artists are using various kinds of technologies these days, is that it was converted into NFT, non-fungible token, and it was sold at an auction on 21st Century Evening Sale, again at Christie's in New York, and the piece raised $1.4 million. A lot of it went to charity, that's true, but still, that was a very good outcome. What else did we see? What other significant breakthroughs? Well, if you're into digital art, you would probably recognize these lovely creatures. Well, on the left, the famous CryptoPunk, and then the CryptoKitty, which was an NFT-based game, and where you can design and breed your own kitties and even have generation of kitties. And these kitties, each kitty was unique and was so popular at some point that it literally clogged the Ethereum blockchain. So non-fungible tokens are actually contracts of ownership that you can have as an artist to certify that they do belong to you in the digital realm, or you can tokenize physical piece of art as well. So multiple possibilities. And of course, I need to talk about the metaverse. That's one of the newest, perhaps, entry into the scene and blending the boundaries between art and technology. Metaverse uses various types of technologies, VR, AR, mixed reality as well. Blockchain is sometimes part of the metaverse. And as an artist, you can participate in a couple of ways. You can create your own metaverse, but it could be quite expensive. So that's not typically recommended course of action for you. But you can definitely display some of your art in metaverses. And this is what I know some digital artists are doing. They're creating spaces, galleries already existing in, say, something like Sandbox. And of course, we also should talk about Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, but we won't because it's a really large topic. Well, what are sort of the implications? What I'm trying to say here, let me switch maybe to the full mode. What are the implications of these trends for arts and for artists? And these are the three ones that I'm going to talk about, and then we'll see how you can use these trends for your benefit. One is platformification. Another one is deprofessionalization or erosion of art as a professional institution, particularly of art critics, and fluidity of boundaries between various visual art domains and non-visual art domains. What do we mean by platformification? That's not a new phenomenon. We see it in many other markets, like taxi services and hospitality. I'm, of course, talking about Airbnb and food delivery and selling books on Amazon. But the rise of platforms selling art-related NFTs outside the art market has been a very important development over the last 3 years. And there was this surge of interest in NFTs and to digital art in particular. It's was one of the biggest trends in 2021. And most of this impact was outside traditional galleries and auction houses on external platforms like OpenSea, Foundation, Nifty Gateway, and so on. Well, the reason why platformification is so significant is because it's altering the hierarchy that exists in the traditional art world. And that gives the artist a lot more flexibility in how she or he wants to run her career, and at the same time becoming responsible and accountable for the results. And of course, there is also a negative effect of that, of platformification, and that's deprofessionalization as a side effect. So we have this institution of the art critic almost disappearing. It has some problems for the artists, and I'll briefly mention them as well. And the third trend is, again, I want to show you a picture here. Quite a beautiful one, I think. And that really emphasizes the blurring of boundaries. What you see here is AES plus F, it's Cooperative Artists, and Gentle Monster, a Korean brand, fashion brand. They announced the first ever auction of a video artwork made for fashion collection campaign. It's minted as an NFT on Super Rare, and that's another platform. So this is a quite renowned artist collective collaborating with a fashion brand, and they completely erasing this boundary between art, advertising, and fashion by offering a campaign film for auction. It's a film, a short film, and with the help of NFT, it becomes a complete and authentic work. This collaborative work expands the definition of art by existing simultaneously in two realms, and it straddles the lines between artwork and fashion, and an acknowledgement that in reality, for these two very large audiences, the things are becoming, the contexts are becoming to get blurred, indistinguishable. And as part of this Gentle Monster 2021 Nano Collection campaign, the video artwork was produced that you see right now, titled The Cycle of Life. It's accompanied by a soundtrack by an award-winning composer, Dmitry Kurlansky, The Circle of Life, and it depicts a surreal landscape, as you can see here, populated by people of all races and ages whom wear these eccentric nanoglasses. You see chimera creatures, a biomorphic structure in the sky. The characters reach out to these chimeras to touch them, taking off after them on futuristic floating boards, but they never actually come close to ever reaching them. And when the characters return to the ground, the creatures continue circling above them, just out of reach, and the cycle repeats. It's really a very good allegory for life that has no beginning and no end. Now, what does it all mean? What all these technological trends mean for artists? They mean, so what are the implications? they're here to stay, whether you love them, whether you don't love them. Generative art, for example, they are here to stay. And I think it's wise for all artists, for you as an artist, to use them to your advantage. Even if you're a physical artist, you can, for example, use NFTs to certify your work or have terms of sales encoded in the smart contract, which is attached to NFTs. Their impact on the arts market will only intensify. I think we'll see more and more of these blurring of visual arts, with video, with music, so and with fashion for that matter. So it will become just creative industry rather than just visual arts or advertising or music. If you're a digital artist, you need to address this issue of deprofessionalization of the art market as a result of this platformification. You need to take care where and on which platform you sell your art. There is nothing worse for a collector to come to a dump, to come to a place where there's lots of stuff and nothing can be even located, and you need to spend hours and hours just trying to find out where can I buy art and not just collectible items, right? So one of the ways of addressing this is just to go with a highly curated digital platform. The standard roles and stages in this value chain that we're all accustomed to in the traditional art market, like the critic, the dealer, the art gallery, the curator, all of that has changed. They may become part of your team as an artist. Sometimes they can become a producer for you if you're not really into marketing, you prefer creating. So producing or art management for the digital artist to, again, take advantage of that changing of the roles. And in the past, it's interesting to know, at first, we didn't have much of a dialogue between digital artists and all these galleries, particularly traditional galleries. But as you've seen, even Christie's have started to exhibit art which is different. Sometimes it's digital art in people's case, sometimes it's AI generated art, and so on. You also need to use social media very effectively, and not just only for your visual content. I have an artist who I know quite well, and he's not only supplies visual content on Instagram, on Twitter, for example, but his content is also revealing his philosophy of art, of crypto. He's talking about new trends in technology and art, how he creates his art. You can find a lot of that on his YouTube channel. But it's not just the content, but also the work around the process of creating art. You need to use social networks more effectively, and they have a major implication. They offer new promotional strategies for artists. And what we have now is the phenomenon of the successful Instagram artist. Again, Beeple is a very good example. You can develop and shape your target audience on social networks like Instagram, and then approach galleries, and sometimes very often top galleries. That was not possible in the past. In the past, if you're an artist, you go through all the motions. You start with lesser galleries, with local galleries, and if you're successful, then finally you start exhibiting in top galleries. Not anymore. It's possible to go from Instagram to a top gallery. You also need to remind yourself that physical sales are emotionally charged because we have this live interaction between artists and galleries, collectors and artists and collector. Online sales are far more rational. You can't tell a joke, for example. And this is why things like persona, authenticity, personal brand, all this can be done, but it's just different in an online world. And this is why storytelling and narratives become extremely important. If you're an artist who wants to maybe become part of digital platforms, exhibit in digital gallery, well, artist statements or artist portfolios are absolutely a must. I hope you found this useful. I hope you can take some tips and pieces of advice. And I certainly will continue with this topic of the secrets of the digital art world. And I will see you soon. Thank you again.